Before I start, I need you to pause for a moment. I want you to really feel this with me, because what you're about to hear isn't just a story. It's a journey through betrayal, truth, and the kind of justice that hits harder than anyone expects. If you've ever been lied to, underestimated, or forced to watch as someone you trusted thrived on deception, this is the story that will make your heart race. So if you're ready to see secrets unravel, to feel every moment of rage, pain, and ultimate payoff, do something simple. Hit that like button. Subscribe too, because stories like this, they don't just entertain. They sharpen your mind, awaken your instincts, and remind you that no secret stays buried forever. I still remember the day everything changed. I thought I was invisible, just another face in the crowd, someone they'd never notice, or so I believed. My name is Alara, and I had built my life quietly, working hard, keeping my head down, never asking for more than I needed. But that silence, that careful invisibility, became the perfect mistake for those around me. They thought I'd never see, never hear, never understand. They were wrong. It started with small things, offhand comments, laughter that stopped the moment I entered the room, glances that lingered too long and weighed too heavy. Tarian, my so-called mentor, was the first to smile behind my back, hiding schemes that weren't meant for me to see. Solen, always polite, always helpful, whispered just enough to plant doubt, to make me question myself. And Breck? I should have known. His charm was too precise, his kindness too practiced. I never suspected the darkness beneath. Then came the first real blow. A document, almost by accident, slipped under my desk. I hesitated, heart hammering, as I read names I recognized, lies I never imagined. People I trusted, people I believed in. They had been hiding everything, every ambition, every betrayal, every secret plan that could ruin lives, including mine. I felt my stomach drop, my chest tighten. How could they? How could someone I called a friend, a guide, a colleague, do this to me? The anger was a slow burn at first, almost a whisper, but it grew. And with it, a sharp clarity. This was no longer just about hurt. It was about justice. I spent nights replaying every interaction, every handshake, every word they'd said with a smile. I began to see the patterns, the lies hidden in plain sight, the betrayals disguised as guidance. And in that dark clarity, a thought emerged, one I had tried to bury beneath hurt and disbelief. If they thought I was weak, if they thought silence would be my response, they were gravely mistaken. I realized something powerful. I didn't need to confront them yet, not in anger, not in fear. I needed to prepare. Every secret they hid became a thread, and I would weave them into a net so tight that not one of them could escape. I wasn't just going to survive what they had done. I was going to turn it against them. Slowly, deliberately, I began to collect what I needed, learning, watching, waiting. And even now, as I speak these words to you, I can still feel the pulse of that first spark, the moment I decided that the scales of justice would tip in my favor. If you've ever been underestimated, ignored, or betrayed, you'll understand the weight of this moment. And if you stick with me, you'll see what happens when someone like me, someone forced into the shadows, steps into the light, ready to claim what was always theirs. After that first spark, I couldn't stop. Every night, I pored over what I had discovered, connecting dots that no one thought I could see. I realized their world was built on lies, one hidden truth stacked on another, and the higher I climbed in their secrets, the more dangerous and exhilarating it became. Tarian's schemes were just the surface. Selene's whispers were breadcrumbs leading to a feast of deception. And Breck, he was the key I hadn't even realized I needed. I started to notice the little things others dismissed. Who avoided eye contact when certain names came up? Whose hands shook when they spoke of money or power? Whose smiles were too quick, too rehearsed? Each discovery was like a puzzle piece. And as I fit them together, a picture of the full betrayal began to emerge. They had underestimated me for so long that they didn't even think to hide their tracks from someone like me. But I was paying attention. Every slip, every shadow of truth was ammunition. It wasn't easy. I had to hide my own reactions, swallow the fire in my chest, and keep my face calm while the betrayal gnawed at me from the inside. I felt rage, yes, but it was measured, precise, and it fueled me rather than consumed me. I started training myself in ways they would never expect. I learned to manipulate situations, to read people with frightening clarity, and to bend the very truths they thought they controlled to my will. Slowly, deliberately, I became someone they could never see coming. The more I learned, the more I realized how deep the rot went. Financial schemes hidden behind legal walls, alliances built on lies, betrayals tangled so intricately they couldn't untangle themselves. And right in the center of it all was Breck, whose charm masked ruthless ambition. I understood then that if I wanted to survive, and if I wanted justice, I couldn't just strike blindly. I needed a plan, a strategy that would leave no one untouched, no secret hidden. And yet, in that darkness, I felt something strange, a sense of power I had never known. Every secret I uncovered, every betrayal I cataloged became a tool. The very things they thought would destroy me were shaping me into a force they could never imagine. It was intoxicating, knowing that the scales of fate were slowly tipping, that one day, every hidden lie, every masked betrayal, would return to them. By the time I finally stood in front of the last piece of the puzzle, I knew I had changed. I wasn't the same quiet, overlooked Ilara. I was someone sharper, someone ready, someone who could turn betrayal into weaponry. The moment had come when patience and preparation would meet opportunity. And deep down, I knew this. When I finally acted, the world they built on lies would crumble, and I would be the one holding the pieces. The day I finally struck felt almost ordinary, and that was exactly how I wanted it. No dramatic entrances, no shouting or confrontation, just precision. The quiet satisfaction of knowing I held all the pieces while they were blind to what was coming. My first move was small, subtle, but devastating. A misfiled report, a carefully whispered truth, a tiny crack in the wall they'd built around themselves. And then I watched. The panic was instantaneous. Tarian's confident mask faltered the first time he realized someone had seen through his schemes. Solen's carefully constructed calm began to tremble as whispers spread faster than she could control. And Breck's eyes widened in disbelief when a seemingly insignificant error exposed months of manipulation. I almost smiled at that moment, but I kept my face neutral, my voice calm, because I knew that even the smallest slip from me would ruin the illusion. It wasn't enough to see them panic. I needed them to feel it, to understand that their empire of lies was collapsing. Every move I made was deliberate, a chess game played with patience, skill, and the fire of every betrayal I'd endured. I learned to time my actions, to manipulate not only facts, but emotions, so that the very people who thought they controlled everything now danced to my rhythm without realizing it. And yet, even as I saw the first tremors of justice shake them, I couldn't ignore the complexity of what I was doing. This wasn't mindless revenge. It was calculated, precise, and it weighed on me in ways I didn't expect. I felt the sting of knowing that I was using the very betrayals I had suffered as weapons, and in that reflection, I understood the duality of power. It could be both liberation and a burden, and I had to carry it with intention. The first real confrontation came silently. Documents they thought hidden were now in the hands of people who mattered. Alliances began to crumble, and reputations started to fracture. I watched the chaos unfold, savoring the moment, but always with a careful distance. This was not about gloating, it was about justice. And with each exposure, each whispered truth that found the ears it needed to reach, the scale tipped further in my favor. By the end of that first strike, the room felt different, charged, almost electric. The people who had underestimated me now feared me, and even the ones still unaware sensed that something had shifted. I could feel it too. The transformation wasn't just theirs, it was mine. I wasn't just avenging myself. I was becoming someone stronger, sharper, someone who understood that patience, knowledge, and strategy were far more powerful than brute force or impulsive anger. And yet, even in that victory, I knew the work was far from done. The full extent of their secrets remained to be revealed. The full weight of karma still had to fall. But I was ready, and for the first time in my life, I felt untouchable, not because I was invincible, but because I understood the art of turning betrayal into power. The moment of full revelation came faster than I expected. By then, I had learned to read them like open books. Every nervous glance, every forced smile, every carefully crafted lie, they were all mine to unravel. And I did piece by piece, with the precision of someone who had waited too long to be seen, too long to be hurt, too long to be silenced. It started with Breck. His empire of charm and manipulation crumbled quietly, methodically. Emails he thought deleted resurfaced. Conversations he thought private reached ears he never imagined. And when he realized the extent of exposure, the shock on his face was almost beautiful. Almost, because it wasn't just about watching him fall, it was about the balance finally being restored. Every secret he thought hidden became a weapon pointed back at him, and he had nowhere to run. Tarion and Solène were next. Tarion had built walls of arrogance, believing that loyalty could never be shaken. I tore them down with facts, with evidence, with truths they couldn't deny. Solène's carefully spun narratives unraveled in moments, and she realized, too late, that I had been orchestrating the collapse all along. The power of karma is subtle, but relentless, and I felt it flowing through every action I took, every decision I had meticulously planned. By the time it was over, the people who had once controlled my life, who had betrayed me without a second thought, were exposed. Their reputations, their influence, their illusions of invincibility, all gone. And yet, even in victory, I felt the weight of what I had done. Revenge is not a light burden. It carries echoes of every betrayal, every hurt, and every sleepless night. But it also carries clarity. I could finally breathe, knowing that justice had been served, not blindly, but intentionally. The most powerful moment, though, wasn't seeing them fall. It was feeling myself rise. I had transformed from someone who had been overlooked, underestimated, and ignored into someone who commanded respect, not through fear, but through the undeniable truth of what I had endured and what I had overcome. I was no longer just a victim of betrayal. I was the architect of justice, the keeper of secrets returned to their rightful place, and the living proof that patience and strategy are more powerful than raw anger. And yet, in that triumph, I also understood something else. The world doesn't end with one act of revenge. Life moves forward, and so must I. The lessons I had learned, the strength I had gained, would guide me long after the echoes of their downfall faded. Every secret they hid, every betrayal they thought would define me, had only made me stronger. And now, armed with that strength, I could face anything, ready for whatever came next. If you've followed me this far, you've witnessed what patience, clarity, and courage can do. And remember, every secret has a price. Every betrayal finds its mark. If you love this journey, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Because stories like this remind us all, no secret stays hidden forever, and karma always finds its way. The dust settled slowly, almost imperceptibly, and the world felt different. I walked through the remnants of the chaos I had orchestrated, and for the first time, felt a quiet sense of peace. The people who had once ruled my life with deceit and manipulation were gone from their thrones, and the weight of their betrayal no longer pressed on my chest. But victory, I realized, was not just about seeing them fall, it was about reclaiming myself. I spent hours reflecting on what had happened. Every secret I uncovered, every lie exposed, every carefully calculated move, it had all led to this moment. And yet, even in triumph, I couldn't ignore the cost. Revenge leaves marks, invisible but undeniable. There's a sting in knowing you've wielded pain, even if it's justice. And there's a weight in seeing the truth so brutally laid bare. But there is also clarity, an unshakable understanding of who you are when the smoke clears. I was no longer the timid, underestimated alive who had once been invisible. I had been forged in the fires of betrayal and tempered by the discipline of patience and strategy. As I looked back on the journey, I realized the most powerful lesson wasn't about revenge at all. It was about resilience, about seeing the world as it is, not as you wish it to be, and using that truth to carve your own path. Every betrayal, every secret, every lie, they had tried to define me, but I refused. I had learned to move silently, strike deliberately, and emerge stronger than anyone could have imagined. Karma had not only found its mark, it had shaped me into someone unstoppable. And yet, I knew the story didn't end with others' downfall. The true challenge was moving forward, carrying the wisdom I had gained without letting it harden me into someone unrecognizable. I had the power now, yes, but with power comes responsibility, not to others, but to myself. I would not allow the darkness I had endured to control me again. I would wield it with intention, carefully, and only when necessary. There is a strange beauty in that balance, understanding the depth of human deceit and betrayal, while also embracing your own strength and clarity. I had turned every secret they hid into a weapon, but I had also discovered the greatest weapon of all, myself. The person who had once been overlooked, underestimated, and silenced had emerged not just victorious, but whole, aware, and prepared for anything life might throw next. If you've followed me through this journey, then you know what it feels like to rise from the shadows of betrayal and step into your own power. Remember this: every secret has a cost, every betrayal finds its moment, and karma never forgets. If this story resonated with you, hit like, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe. Because stories like this remind us all that strength, patience, and truth are the ultimate power. And sometimes they're all you need to rewrite your own destiny.